You're live, Adrian.
Hello and welcome to the regular Tuesday edition of Spurs Diehards TTID, Tottenham Till I Die. Tonight I've got a good panel for you. We've got Brad, who's a good friend of the show, and we've got from Blue Sofa Songs. We'll put his link up later. We've got David Harris from the Irish Hotspur, who runs an huge Spurs group out there. It's a well-popular group. He's making his debut, and I hope it'll be the first of many. Then I've got fellow co-founder Ian Meth with me as well, and of course you have me, your host. So, Brad, how are you, mate?
I'm fine. Today I think winter has finally arrived because it was absolutely freezing on the way home, and that's why I've got a sweater on at the moment. So yeah,
I bet it's colder where David is. How are you, David? And
It's absolutely freezing all day, to be quite frank. Not quite snow yet, which I wouldn't mind coming up the Christmas period. Very idyllic. But look, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for the invite. I know, we were trying to sort something out before, but eventually I got here, so I really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to getting stuck into it. So thanks for having me, guys. And
Ian, no doubt it's tropical in Scotland where you are at the moment.
Absolutely tropical. You've been in my swimming trunks all day. I listened to a local show from where my place is in Spain, and they're saying it's 26 degrees, and it was 26 degrees here as well, but it was centigrade or Celsius there in Fahrenheit here. It was brass monkey weather, absolutely cold, but no snow.
Okay, well, we've got quite a few subjects to talk, Spurs-related topics, as usual. I don't do long-winded intros. I like to get stuck in. So we'll move in with Dave on this one. Bentancur 7-game punishment. Meanwhile, Bentancur can play in Europa League games. Not the League Cup. I didn't put it in here, though. Premier League return, Forest away, 26th of December. He's also on 4 yellow cards, so but he can't get a yellow card until December. If not, if he gets one then against Forest, he's going to have a long Christmas. What's your take on this, Dave? I mean, like it's got a mixed to angry response from some Spurs fans, but
do you know what? Look, I think punishment for that for what he said is absolutely correct. My problem is the consistency. Someone like Enzo Fernandez, what he done over the summer, he was just allowed to come back to Chelsea, no suspension, no fine, no nothing, which really infuriates me. I have no problem with the suspension whatsoever, but what else annoys me is the timing of it. Why does it take halfway during the season when we're coming into the busiest fixture period for every team to be able to dish out the punishment and the fine? I'm sorry, it doesn't take long for an FA committee to gather everything and put it together to do it now. This should have been done heading into the start of the season. Not now. I think it's an absolute travesty. I think it's poor from the FA. I also would argue, are the FA overreaching their jurisdiction? Should that not be more in FIFA's hands, considering it happened on international duty? That's where my concern comes in from around the FA. I don't think we get a fair shake from them in general. You take yourself back to Arsenal were allowed to cancel games. We weren't. You take yourself back to Lasagna Gate. If that was Liverpool, United, Chelsea, Arsenal, any of the darlings, they would have been allowed to play it the next day. We weren't. The FA have a history of conspiring against us, and I think timing is convenient for them, quite frank. But look, no problem with the crime, or the punishment. I just have problems with the timing, and should it be FIFA or the FA?
Brad, do you think that these three, all local FAs from different countries and FIFA and UEFA should get together and decide any incident regarding with their players is dealt with their local FAs, or do you think it should be left with UEFA or FIFA calling competitions? Because, like David says, I'm in full agreement. I mean, he deserved punishment, whether we think it's severe.
Apparently, and I don't like to bring up other shows, but we all watch Alistair Gold, and he, on his latest one, actually went into it. He actually read all the transcripts, all that sort of thing. And the story is that the interview actually took place in April. That's why it comes under the FA's jurisdiction. So, I certainly didn't know, but apparently that's what happened. It was published in June by this Uruguayan sort of journalist, whereas Hernandez was actually on international duty, so it falls under FIFA's jurisdiction. That's according to Ali Gold on his latest one. I would recommend it. It's only about 10-15 minutes. He actually goes in really into it. He goes into the whole case and everything. It's very, very interesting. It's difficult to say, should they all come together? I mean, FIFA and UEFA can't get organised anyway. Why would they be able to organise themselves with the various football associations? So in that respect, no, I think it should be jurisdiction of where the offence took place. That sort of group should look at it. As far as the band's concerned,
sorry, that's my fault.
That's all right.
I'm trying
to find.
We're going to come to that later. Carry on, Brad.
I think that yes, I agree with David. He should have had a ban, whatever. For what he transgressed. It is a racism in any form, whether it's done as a joke. It's not, it should be should be punished. The only thing I will say is that apparently for that offence, 6 to 12 games that's what they look at, and rather than go for the lowest one, they went one more for 7. That does seem rather, for what actually happened and what happened afterwards. That does seem rather a lot of games. And I'm wondering, if anything, if we remember Suarez a few years back, didn't he used the N-word, didn't he? And he got called in. So Brad,
I mean, I go back further. I know it's different times. I remember being at the Villa game at Spurs, right? And it's given a Nazi salute at the Paxton Road engine. But I know that was a while back, though.
What they're doing now is they're actually sort of saying, well, if someone at Bentancur said 7 games, it could go up to potentially 12 games. What if you get the next, really vile racist remark, like Suarez saying the N-word? Then you're going to say, okay, that's going to be 15, 16 games. And then eventually, I mean, how many games did Cantona get for kung fu kicking a fan? You got what, 8 months was it or whatever? So I just think on that particularly, the actual ban, I think, is a little bit excessive for what actually happened, but yeah, who am I to say? And I'm the person out there that people would describe as lefty, socialist, hippie, woke, or whatever you want to call it, and yet I'm saying that I think it was actually harsh.
Ian, I think we're all in agreement that he should have received the punishment. It's a question of severity. I mean, I was thinking 4, something like that, but the FA now, I mean, this is, or the committee that decides, this is the benchmark now. So maybe it's a good benchmark to have going forward. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, just something I've got a little bit of knowledge of, because I used to chair judicial panels in Scotland. And the Scottish model is very much based on the English model. So what there will be is there will be a scale. There will be a lower end, which will be in this case it will be 3 to 6, then a medium scale 6 to 12, and then a higher extreme would be 12 games plus. once they've deemed it falls in the middle category, and I suppose you can say that the comments were racist. Racism's never going to get dealt with at the lower end. So if you take it from that, then 7, when it could be anything from 6 to 12, isn't that bad. But I think David hit the nail on the head, to be honest, with the comments about the inconsistency. And I mean, you can say, well, one's under the FA's jurisdiction, one's under another, but you've got the situation. I mean, particularly, for example, the Argentina squad were all singing grotesque remarks, singing grotesque songs about the entire French team, the French nation, which actually should have had the whole even maybe not suspended, but every player that was in that dressing room suspended for a number of games as a deterrent. Of course, they don't do it; they bottle it, and so Bentancur's casual racism against a teammate that was probably, look, I'm sorry, and shake hands, has suddenly become a massive event, and it's a pity. It's a pity for the players, because I suspect there's no bad blood between Son and Bentancur. But the other thing is, the players are given so much training now, so much training on media relations, on social media, on what they can and can't say, and Bentancur just let his guard down really badly. Unfortunately, of course, we're all going to pay a price for it, including Son.
It smacks of inconsistency and double standards. I want to just throw this at you before we move on to something else. To me, all right, you punish him, fair enough. Right, that's right. He should have received the punishment. It should have been sanctioned. But if his own FA had done it, or if FIFA had turned around to Uruguay and said to the FA, look, you've got an issue in your country with people that are very casual, towards racism in general, and it's the way your culture is at this present time. You should deal with this and make an example, because then the message gets across to your people in your country. To me, Bentancur being punished over here, we can throw our arms up and say, well, it's justified, or it's a little bit harsh. I think it's a little bit harsh, personally. Four matches would have done me, I would have thought. So, but I don't see how it sends a message to Uruguay. Anyone? Ian?
I mean, I couldn't agree. I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, it's always difficult for us when we're talking about our own player and our own club, because you probably do lose an element of objectivity. Remember there was a case, it was a championship game a few weeks back, and the player bit the guy on the neck, and if you remember that, and I'm looking at that, and they're saying, I'm listening to it on Sky, I think one of the ref watch for Dermot Gallagher, and they're there's no proof, and well, the proof is on balance of probabilities, it's not beyond reasonable doubt. And I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, if I'm chairing that judicial panel, there's more than enough evidence for me to suggest to my colleagues that the player should be found, or the offence found proven. And I'm thinking, you're looking at somewhere between 6 and 12 for something like that. And he gets 8. Now, to me, the biting an opponent on the field, it was so much more serious than what Bentancur did, which was like a throwaway remark. Effectively. I mean, when you remember Teddy Sheringham saying, it's a good few years back now, but he wouldn't want his son to be playing football because there's so many black players and they're so much stronger than white players, that it would, it would be difficult for him. I mean, I don't think that's come to pass.
No,
but you could. I mean, it wasn't racist. It's not racism. If you to say what Teddy Sheringham said, in my view. But you can imagine now, if he was involved in the game, they'd be throwing the book at him.
Oh, the media would pick it up because they'd want to make a story out of it, and they'd want to skew it any way they could to give them a story,
I was just thinking of Bentancur. I mean, you said 4 games, or could you just say 7 or 8 games suspended? I don't know. It's obviously in it, and I found it very interesting. It was actually the FA were like the prosecutors, and I were the defence, and it was an individual panel that decided on guilty or not guilty. But it's as I said before, we're probably going to see or hear about a lot worse than that.
He looks. The shame is he looks fully recovered from his ACL. He's been playing. He's been back to his best. I think he's been one of our best players. You know, along with Decky and Solanke, obviously, and SARS look good. You saw the engine player is one of our engines. You know, and so that's disappointing. Okay, let's move on to before we get into the squad. Let's talk about this. There's been a bit of a. I don't know if it's a meltdown because I don't know how many people really. Went into one over this, but this logo debate, I mean, removing Tottenham Hotspur. I mean, my own personal thing is, tasteful-wise, I mean, the stadium's known as Tottenham Hotspur Stadium to our 34 million estimated fans. The cockerel is synonymous with Spurs everywhere you go. I wouldn't want Tottenham Hotspur under the cockerel on any of my Spurs kit, clothing, blah, blah, blah. I mean, do you think there's been an overreaction by a section?
Do you know what it is? Look, quite frank, I don't care. Look, I like the fact that they brought back what's that THFC design they made. I like the fact they brought that back. I like the fact that there's a nod to the Seven Sisters and things like that, things that are synonymous with Tottenham. And look, fans have asked the club to incorporate some of the history, so fair play to them in that regard. But this is my problem. He's the only ownership at Tottenham Hotspur that has really done everything he can to cater towards the commercial side of the game. And again, it's another thing towards the commercial side of the game. At the point where we're in, Ange Postecoglou's under fire. You know, we didn't have the best of summer transfer windows. We want someone to come out and show leadership and clarity around where we're at now, what we're looking to go through, rather than a logo change. It's just tone deaf by the football club. It's not what we need at this time. You know, what we need is, and what us fans actually care about, is on the pitch. We want to hear how we're going to become successful. What's your pathway to make us successful? Things like that. We do not care about a logo change. Quite frank, it doesn't make any difference to my life whatsoever. And look, taking the Tottenham Hotspur out, in a way, I feel like you're going to see a lot of the clubs that were attached to the Super League eventually go that way to take the attachment of the area from the football club away, and eventually they're going to get their own way with the Super League, whether that be 10, 15, 20 years down the line. And also taking Tottenham Hotspur out underneath the crest saves the club money. So I'm not quite sure it was all for the rebranding purposes. I do think there's cost-cutting elements. And again, my problem is, they brag about bringing in first-class branding people to work with it. They brag about bringing first-class stadium, acts and entertainment to the stadium for concerts, the best in boxing and matches they can bring to the stadium. But what about the best in class for players, for what its actually main sole purpose is, which is football? We tend to take the hit on that end, and we tend to take the frustrations that come with it. And I just think right now it's absolutely tone deaf. Come out and back Ange Postecoglou. In a time now where fans are hunting for his head, you're seeing discontent and rumours. What Levy needs to do is something like what Edu done for Arteta. Come out, make a stand. Transfer window's coming up. Any players in that dressing room that is not here for the good of Tottenham Hotspur and for this project, out you go in January. We'll get the right price. You can go. We'll replace you and push on. That way you get the squad on Ange Postecoglou's side. You also send out a message to the fans, despite what you think, this is what we're going with. Try and get behind it. We need them to take leadership, and all they've done is send out a tone-deaf message over the international break of a rebrand, which, quite frank, no fan cares about. Like I said, I'm not going to go into meltdown. It doesn't affect my day. I just think it's stupid and naive, especially when fans always accuse this of the ownership. All he cares about is the commercial side. And in times of when we need leadership on the football side, again, we come out with the commercial side. It's just tone deaf.
Brad, who can be found here?
Well, I mean, more or less, I agree with what David said. The only thing, I doesn't really worry me. I probably laughed, which is quite ironical when you think that Tottenham Hotspur, the one thing they could never be as comedians because they're absolutely incredibly bad at timing. I did I mean, I guess they probably had the release date for this all. That was all written down, and they did it. But you do wonder, getting the top branding people, you do wonder how much money that has gone into this rebranding when you think that they're taking concessions away from certain football supporters. So you know, it's hard not to be cynical about what the club are doing. And yeah, look, you know, what do we care about? We care about how the football club is doing, and that's the only area which we don't seem to want to get the very best. And if you look at the, you know, as same goes for all the concerts and all the NFL. Great, if you make loads and loads of money, brilliant, no problem with that. But put it towards the football team, and let's have the football team at the top of the pyramid, because I don't think it is at the top of the pyramid at the moment. And I made a rant on Twitter a couple of weeks ago, a drunken rant, it has to be said.
Nothing wrong with that.
If ever, but it's basically saying it's not a football club anymore, and I'm not the first person to say that. It's basically a property management company now, and the football, they don't seem to care about the football. I mean, they probably argue against that, but that's the sort of view that I seem to see, and what I imagine many fans seem to think. As far as the brand's concerned, I couldn't care less. You know, if they hadn't done it, would I have cared? No, they did it. Do I care? Not really, no. You could be really, really cynical, and the fact that they've taken Tottenham Hotspur away from it is, that's getting more and more away from the fact that we're a football club. But, you know, I don't know if that's true. That probably isn't. But yeah, it's a weird one. It's a weird one. Probably not worth any more than the 10, 15 minutes we're talking about it now. You know, I'm sure there'll be some shows that will be talking about it for like 2 hours. But, no.
Here's my annoyance with it, though, is the time, the resources, the money, the people that they put into it would be better off going into having an inquest on, you know, how we make Tottenham more successful on the football pitch,
exactly,
you know, how we take the right steps to be able to deliver trophies. Because once you bring trophies, everything else is going to follow. Once you bring trophies, everyone wants to be attached to that. So, and I think that's the main aspect that they're missing. But also, you know, the consulting the fans, it's just, again, it's another measly gesture, you know. Consult the fans on what they think about the football side of things. They'll never do that, you know, and they're the little things that annoy me within it.
Ian,
yeah,
the club would win the gold medal for mistiming announcements, wouldn't they, about doing things, wouldn't they just?
And I think that's indicative of the increasing disconnect between the board and the fans. I genuinely, either they don't understand what the fans think, or what worries me more is those critics who say that they don't care. But this was one of those ones. If we'd beaten Ipswich and we were third in the league, I don't think anyone would have given a tuppenny toss about it. I think coming off the back of a bad defeat, coming off the back then of rumours of players have fallen out with the manager, including Bentancur, you know, Udogie, Romero, Maddison. It wasn't a good look. The other thing is, and I've done a bit of reading on this, that apparently the name Tottenham Hotspur, since we got the logo in 1921 before the for the 1921 FA Cup final. So that's 103 years between friends. The name Tottenham Hotspur has been on there. I was trying to look it up when David was talking in particular. It's been there for about 30 years. So when you think under a third of the years that we've had the Cockerel has actually had the name, it actually just isn't as bad as ever with this bloody club and with leaving. It's the frigging timing that gets it. There was a comment in the chat that I will bring up. Steve D, Apple, Nike, Mercedes, etc. The Cockerel is synonymous with the club. It doesn't need the name. People like to get uptight about things these days. On balance, I'm inclined to agree with that. I'm inclined to agree with that. What bothered me, though, a little bit, that's why I brought Ben's comment up on there as the balance, and it's a double-edged sword. is this part of now we're moving away from Tottenham Hotspur because we're getting closer to this NFL franchise, which I thought we would have had long before now. And I thought it would have been London Hotspur. Well, maybe it'll be something slightly different. I don't know. And maybe therefore they're moving away from the Tottenham Hotspur idea.
Well,
I don't know. I think a lot of this, as I say, the issue is timing. And if you look at most logos, if anyone ever goes to a quiz, how often will there be around on logos? And you have to remember who the logo is because the name isn't there. And the comment there, David's comment in what was it? Steve's comment in the chat about Steve's comment in the chat about the logo being synonymous with the club.
Yeah, but
and this is part of the problem, and it's a wider problem, is trust. Is that even those that historically that have been broadly supportive of the board. I'll just make this point quickly, Brad, then please come in. Is that are broadly supportive of the club, that increasingly people like me are finding it difficult to trust what Levy says and what the board say, because there just are too many promises that are not being kept. And in particular, the stadium was meant to be the game changer. Yeah. And we'll talk, I think, because there's question marks about the squad, and I think it's something you want to discuss, Adrian.
Yeah.
Is that what we bought, the players we bought, as far as they went, were good. But what we didn't get, and I've got to do a piece for Scarfy about what we need in the summer, or what we need in the winter, is we didn't invest the big money, the proper money, on some first team players that were oven ready to come in and take us from fifth into that top four. And when you look at how, sorry, I will shut up in a minute.
No, that's all right. You carry
when
on.
You look at how inconsistent everybody is above us, and despite being poor for a lot of the season, we were only 3 points away from third place. Just a little bit of tweaking, a little bit of courage, and investment in the squad could have made a huge difference.
The other comment about the logos, I mean, people would think Apple is a logo of brilliance, Mercedes excellence in motor vehicles. But I'm not so sure that people think the Cockerels being, that's Spurs, they're a really excellent football team, they win a lot of stuff. At the moment, it's just that Cockerel, Spurs, isn't it?
Well,
so this is what annoyed me a little bit about the logo. What made me think the logo was that, you want to do this sort of stuff when you're actually winning stuff, when you're actually successful. But it's the timing issue. And what Ben's saying about the football stadium, I fear that might be going down the American way of doing things. If you watch any sporting event in America, it's always from the Amex Stadium or the Lucasade Stadium, or it's all about the actual the sponsor stadium. It's never from we're going to watch the whatever football team it might be from the football team stadium. It's all about let's watch the New York Yankees from the Pepsi Cola Stadium. That's what it is. That's what I do worry about. What Ben's saying there is that maybe that's the way we're going. It's going to go down that route.
Well, part of Todd Klein's remit when he was a commercial manager before he went to Chelsea, apart from getting in sponsorship deals and dealing with all commercial activities, was to get what we're still waiting for, naming rights for the stadium. But apparently, the longer it went on, it became recognised that as we were still called the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, especially for the NFL career and all that, it sort of put Spurs on the map. And people had looked and see where Tottenham is. So now, although we will announce, so I'm hearing that there will be a new commercial manager announced shortly, right? That there isn't really there's not a panic to get a naming rights deal, even though it might bring in 20-25 million a year or whatever, or maybe more, who knows, right? But just back on the logo, I mean, in 1882, when the Boys from Hotspur Cricket Club formed Tottenham Hotspur Football Club, the shirt actually had an H on it because it was for Hotspur Football Club. In 1884, it was changed because there was a team called Hotspur in another league. So they changed it to Tottenham Hotspur. And we would adopt the spur, the horse's spur. And then the horse's spur changed to a cockerel with a spur on the back because of fighting cockerels. And as Ian rightly said, Pete McWilliam took us to the, after winning a second division title in 1919-20, when we were kicked down in the second division because of Arsenal's skullduggery, getting into the first division then, right? But we only stayed in the season, broke the record and all that, and came up. And then we won the final at Stamford Bridge against Wolverhampton Wanderers 1-0 with a second half goal by Jimmy Dimmock. The following year, we finished second to Man United in the league. But that's just a few historical facts. Okay, right, with that done, let's move on. I want to talk about the squad, and I broke it down into different areas for you all to have your say on. Brad, I'll start with you. I know some of these players are on loan, but they're still part of the team. We have 4 central strikers, Solanke, Richardson, Lancashire, and Velez, right? And just for another story out there today, which some of these stories in the news media drive me nuts when they're from low-tier media, saying Richarlison's out for ages. Well, the video I see today of Richarlison, he was in the gym and he was actually out on a playing surface. So he can't be too far away. He might not be match fit, but he can't be too far away, Richarlison, right? That's what I see today in a training video. So I don't know if you guys have seen it, but just on those strikers, are you happy with our 4 central strikers, Brad?
Well, Velez is still on loan, isn't he? So
yeah, he scored a hat-trick recently for Sevilla, but it was in the Copa del Rey, like, you know what I mean? So it might have been against, I don't know, 12th division team or something. I don't know.
I'd feel a lot happier with our strikers if Richarlison wasn't so, made of glass, basically, because he's always getting injured, and I feel sorry for the guy, but as much as you can for a person getting paid a lot of money for doing the sport he loves. But yeah, that's what worries me. I'd be quite happy to have Solanke and Richarlison as our 2 fit central strikers, and Lancashire as a third striker. But Richarlison's is just not reliable at the moment. So you are banking on if Solanke gets injured, you got a 19-year-old as your main striker, and if you call Velez back from his loan, another player who's young, you haven't had that much game time for Tottenham. So that's the only thing that worries me about the 4 strikers, the fact that Richarlison is so unreliable. And I'm not saying that's his fault. I'm not saying that, players don't want to get injured, but it's just at the moment, it just seems to be happening an awful lot.
Well, me and David watched a lot of under-21 football last year, and Lancashire got 23 league goals. He got 30 plus with cup games. He does. The kid has definitely got something about him, David, isn't he?
No, 100%. He's definitely got something about him, and I think the right way is to give him minutes over the likes of the Europa League and stuff like that. Sort of stagger him into men's football. It's clear playing at under 21 level. He wasn't going to have another season of it. He's way too good. He was banging in the goals way too consistently. But the problem I have with the strikers is we saw Larry Kane 2 summers ago. We should have brought in someone like Solanke then, and then went and got Richarlison's replacement last summer. So in effect, we're like a season behind of where we should be. When it comes to Richarlison, look, when the guy's fit, he's not as bad as people make him out to be. He contributes. But the problem is keeping him fit. And look, I don't think it's just down to a culmination of injuries. It's been well speculated about his mental health, and I think a lot of his availability has been down to that and how he's feeling. With mental health, my sister's been through it for decades. You're constantly up and down and stuff like that. I fully understand it. So, I think these injuries and niggles and all, I think they're being used to cover up for a far bigger issue. But at the end of the day, he's been here 2 and a bit seasons now, and he just hasn't been available. And we're a football club. By all means, we should look to help him as much as we can, but we should also be looking at offloading them or trying to move him on, or bring someone else in and just realize that he's not fit.
On that, David, quickly, sorry to interrupt. Would you get rid of them in January or in the summer? Because are we going to need everyone we've got, or what, at the moment?
You know what? I think if they had plans and they could get someone in January, I think January would be the time to do it, to really help us push on for the second half of the season. However, we all know January, it's not a buyer's market, right? You could line up a player and you could well agree club, you could well agree price, personal terms, but that club will not let go until they find a replacement. And that has a trickle-on effect 3 or 4 times over because it's notoriously such a difficult market to buy in. So I wouldn't expect it to happen in January. I think it probably will happen this summer. But Solanke surprised me, you know. His all-round game has surprised me. It's a lot better than what I first initially thought. He's starting to add in with a bit more goals in recent weeks, which is good. But he does need proper competition. I think we're far too reliant on him to the point where, you know, there was one week there we rolled him out for, I think, full game in Europa League, full game at the weekend, stuff like that. And then when it came to games recently where we really need him, he just looked jaded. He looked tired. And I think we're getting into the same situation that we were getting in with Harry Kane, where we're over-reliant. Will Lancashire is a great prospect coming through. And by all means, we should keep him at this club and we should look after his development rather than put it in someone else's hands on loan where it might derail it. But we do need another striker in here. I want to get back to the days where we had the likes of Robbie Keane, Jermaine Defoe, or Robbie Keane, Crouch, you know, players like that. We had Pavlyuchenko. We used to have 3-4 great strikers at Tottenham Hotspur. And I think we need to get back to that because with Harry Kane, we were lucky. We could rely on one striker over the whole season to bag us 30-odd goals. Without him now, you're going to need 2, if not 3 players, like two senior players and someone like Will Lancashire, all chipping in to make that shortfall. So I think that's where we need to get to. I don't think the striker options are currently good enough to help deliver trophies, which is what Ange Postecoglou says he wants.
Ian? Velez is an intriguing one to me. I watch videos, like I'll always, when players gain gravitas, then I'll post them everywhere on all the WhatsApp groups and the Facebook groups and Twitter.
Yeah.
You know,
and I think it was Audio Artisan who said, well, if Velith is there, why isn't Scarlett? Scarlett's still on loan, isn't he? We didn't sell Scarlett.
At Oxford, and he scored yesterday for the under-21s. A diving header in the first 5 minutes against Holland. And
that's what you don't see now, is it? Diving headers.
The strike. I mean, I agree with you that Velith has got something about him. Having seen both Velith and Lancashire in pre-season games, I have to say I think that Lancashire is a couple of notches above Velith. That doesn't mean it stays that way, but in my view, Lancashire's got a little bit more about him. I would really like the look of Lancashire.
Velith did score against Brighton away when we lost 4-2. And what I liked about him, the little bit I've seen, and I won't give a judgment till I've seen a player play at least a couple of seasons, really. I'm not these impatient fans that judge a player after 2 or 3 games, you know. But and again, when he played that home game for us and he came on, the kid was injured but wanted to stay on that pitch. And I like that attitude, you know.
Yeah. Well, the point I wanted to make, though, Adrian, was if you take the players, Solanke, Velith, Lancashire and Richarlison as that 4, is that the kind of 4-man striker backup force that you say that's going to get us into the top 4, that's going to win us the Carabao Cup, that's going to win us the Europa League? I don't think anybody in the chat or on the panel would say, sorry, my phone has just flashed up, or my iPad, that Guardiola's extending his contract with Manchester City. That's absolutely breaking news. But I think if you take those 4, are they a 4 that you say are going to take this club forward? Now, probably most of us say no, we need better. The problem then is you say that's it. Levy isn't investing enough money in the team. But Solanke and Richarlison, give or take, were 130, 140 million pounds plus agent fee and what have you. Now, with the best will in the world, was that the best we could get for 130 million? Was that the best deals in football we could get for 130 million? And therein lies the problem to me. I can understand if we're saying we're investing. No, I'm going to invest 40 million on Gray because Gray's going to be a really great player, and I'd rather spend 40 million on him than I don't know who else were we looking at would have done the holding midfield role. Anyway, look, whatever. But therein is the problem for me that we spend a lot of money on perhaps not great players. I understand Solanke for the Ange to play Ange ball, but if Ange were to leave for any reason, is Solanke the centre forward that the new manager wants to pin his reputation on and pin his hopes on? I'm not entirely sure. We had this conversation on one of the shows earlier, Adrian, when I said about, we bought Udogie and Porro to play for under Conte in a 3-5-2. And Porro in particular is weak as a right back in a 4. So, and this is what happens when you keep this, wash, rinse, repeat constantly. And that's the problem. We need continuity. We need to spend money better, but we do need to be buying. If we're going to be buying oven-ready players, they have to be the best. We have to spend the money on the best.
And fans have also got not get to jump at conclusions. I mean, everyone wanted Victor Orban in and players like that. You know, I mean, you don't hear of him now, right? And I agree. Oven ready. I bang on about oven ready players. I bang on about a front three. I don't care how flashy wingers are. You've got to score goals. We should be aiming for the league. So you've got to score goals. Richarlison isn't good enough. He may do enough. He may help. But you need someone you pair. I mean, I wanted Vlahovic because I like the player. Others wanted Gyökeres in Portugal. I understand that. I mean, so that would have been ideal to have a pair like that. Then you can have a Lancashire and Villas behind them, right? You can have them, but you've got to have 2 main number 9s, and we haven't got that. So there's a hole that needs fixing. I don't know what other number 9s out there that are available. You certainly wouldn't go and pay a fortune for Evan Ferguson there and all that. He's one for the future. You don't know how things are going to turn out. We don't know how things are going to turn out with Velez and Lancashire. I mean, Velez might end up getting sold. I mean, I wonder, because his game's slightly different. With Lancashire, he will put in a shift. I will say with Solanke, I think it'd fit any system, the amount of work he gets through him, though. I would say it'd sit any manager in any system, just for the amount of work. And he's got 6 goals, and he does look. I mean, I don't know too much about him when he come, because I was looking more at Vlahovic and Gyökeres, so didn't know. You want to add anything to that, Dave, or?
No, I think when it comes to the striker situation in the summer, I think one thing that gets heavily missed is we needed to sign homegrown players. It's the side of the squad that needed to be bolstered up. When you look at the European side, there's not too many of them players that people would say they would get rit of, which sort of reduces the market we have to shop in. But, they could have pre-planned, like Met said, you look at the money, that's what, 120, 130 million between both of them. I mean, are you really fixing the problem to the best of your ability? They signed Richarlison the season before, knowing that there was a situation with Harry Kane on the horizon, and then they signed Solanke after they realised that Richarlison wasn't the guy. But, in essence, they've missed. You put that 120 million, you go lay down 100 million on a Gyökeres, a Vlahovic, you lay down another 40 million on someone else, that's banging in goals. We just mismanaged the whole situation. Look, it was always going to be hard to replace Harry Kane. But they knew the time was coming, and you question the planning behind it. Did they really have that long-term sort of succession plan that they said, you know what, this is the guy that's going to come in and bring us forward post-Harry Kane era? I don't think so. I think they were just sort of trying to scrap around the market. Look, I have no problem with Spurs picking up players from low down the Premier League. We've done that well in years gone by. But, when you're trying to replace a big player, you've got to bring in another big player to replace him. What we're doing is sort of hitting and hoping, really. We're gambling to a large degree.
I think the recruitment team were busy enough getting all them players out, even arranging all them loan deals. And I think that was the focus. I don't think we did more.
It's the first time. The first time the situation arrived is when they should have had a long-term plan. Not just last summer. Yeah, we could sit here and say they were, other people were busy with getting players out. Yeah, that's fine. But they should have had this in place the first time the conversation came around. A couple of years back when they got them to sign that new deal in the end. That's when they should have been having the resources on it.
Right, when we've come to you, Brad, then go back to Dave. 7 wingers: Son, Moore, Johnson, Werner, Odegaard, Yang Min Hook, Solomon. Now, I put this in because it was interesting. I know he's on loan, but he's still part of us. Played left wing back for Israel, a 1-0 victory against Belgium and a 0-0 draw against France. I just find that an interesting fact that Solomon is doing well. He was injured. He started like a house on fire at Leeds, got injured. Now he's back. Brad, comments, 7 wingers, though.
I'm not so sure that they are all wingers, though, to be fair.
Fair enough.
I don't think Moore is a particularly a winger. I'm not saying he's a bad player, but I don't think he's an actual out-and-out winger. I wouldn't say that Son was an out-and-out winger. Not Moore, I mean, Johnson.
Johnson, yeah.
I guess Werner would be the one, but his confidence is gone, shot. Odegaard's injured and still a young player.
Just had another operation.
Yeah, Yang Min-hyuk, well, no idea. I've only seen him play 20 minutes against us in a friendly. Solomon, I'm not so sure he can cut it in the Premiership, to be honest, but I don't know. So I don't think... Yeah, it looks impressive to say we got all these players, but I'm not so sure that
with Solomon, we see him have 2 cameos, and then he put on a cracking performance in the away game at Burnley, which we won 5-2. 2 assists for Son in his hat trick. It reminded me a bit of Decky's start, because Decky had 2 cameos, about 15, 20 minutes. The fan base were on his front up, really tearing at his throat like that. And then Son squared for him when he made his full debut away at Man City, and he scored a goal. Yeah. I really question fans' impatience, but that's just me. I'm old school. So
I don't think it's really weird. You don't seem to get out and out wingers these days. You get inverted wingers. Like Moore is plays on the left, but he's right-footed. Son is the same, plays on the left, but comes in on his right. Johnson, I think, is more of an inside forward than inside right than an actual out-and-out winger. Odegaard, I haven't seen enough of Odegaard, to be honest, and I don't know Yang Min-hyuk, don't know enough about him. And I would imagine that the wingers getting to the byline and crossing the ball is what suits Postecoglou's system, and where your Dom Solanke would benefit from. So it seems that I still think we need an out and out winger to complement these other wingers.
David, go on, David.
We've no balance, in my opinion, just to sort of go on from where Brad is going on. We've no balance, and I think Brad is absolutely correct. We know what we've got off the left-hand side. We've got Son and Mikey Moore, who are carbon copy of each other. Right-footed players traditionally that play off the left like to cut in and, use that right foot to devastation. But then you have to balance it out on the right-hand side with someone that can cross the ball. With Johnson, he's an inside forward, like Brad alluded to. You put the ball on the plate, he'll be there. His timing of the run to be there is good. But like we've also seen this season, when there's the opportunity for him to deliver that killer ball, it's not there 9 times out of 10. And that's our problem. We don't have enough balance in this position. We brought in Wilson Odegaard. He's another one that's very similar to Son, very similar to Moore. Likes to get on the ball, beat players. But the problem you've got right now as well is outside of Son, they're all raw. They find themselves in great positions, but they don't deliver. And it's an absolute killer. And some of them are in pivotal time of the games. If we had more consistency up front, we kill teams off. You don't give them the belief that they can get something out of the game. And it's a different game altogether. And this is what Ange's system relies on. Players that can kill games off because of the way the tactics is set up to help them. We don't have that. With Son, he's becoming older. His injuries are becoming a lot more frequent. His impact on games are becoming a lot more less than what they once were. But saying that, he's still our only world-class player there. Mikey Moore, he don't get this guy will be a Tottenham player for 10, 15 years if we can keep hold of him. I've seen more than enough of this guy at under 18 level and so far over pre-season and this season to say this guy, bar bad mismanagement from Tottenham or a really bad injury, this guy has all the attributes to become a top professional. But again, with a young player, there is going to be inconsistencies. We can't rely on him to play midweek, weekend for every and have that consistency. Sir Alex Ferguson was a master at it. Put them in, they're playing well, take them out, bring them off the bench, get them used to different scenarios and stuff like that. Build them up that way. Werner, look, the club knee-jerked in the summer. They didn't need to make that the first deal this summer. They could have held off. They could have gone and searched for more viable long-term options for Tottenham Hotspur and held off. And if they couldn't, then pivot to someone like Timo Werner. He's not a player that was in demand. And again, he's come back to bite us in the ass significantly. The amount of chances this guy wastes, and again, he doesn't create. Yang, he's not even at Tottenham. Solomon, again, he's injury-prone. It was a pump. We got him in for free. We'll probably sell him on and make a profit. But are they ideal wingers for Ange Postecoglou's system? I don't think so. Yes, we can sit here and say the majority come in under Ange Johnson. You would say, and from what I understand, he did push for Johnson. But the likes of Udebur, Yuck, Solomon, they're club signings. Ange Postecoglou didn't sit there this summer and says, go and get me them players, especially knowing one of them won't be coming in till January. I'll go and win the league with them. I'm not having it. You know, it's the club buying for the future long term. And I think they do have a lot of potential long term. They could very well come good. But we want for the here and now. And they just won't deliver for what we need in order to win trophies. It's not look that you just arrive in a final and on their day they can win it, which is true. You need to show consistency over the season, over a cup competition to be able to make the final. And that's our problem. We just don't have enough consistency out wide.
Ian, Brennan Johnson, top goal scorer, 7 goals in all competitions.
Yeah.
Is he showing what I didn't see when he first came? Is he showing now why Ange was brave enough to give him his debut away to Arsenal in a 2-2 draw we should have won?
Yeah, I like Johnson. Whether he's suited, I mean, and David may want to come in on this as well. David, being Irish, I don't know how much you watch or watched Celtic under.
I followed them a lot.
And living in Scotland and having green and white hoops when I'm watching Scottish football, I was really keen that we got Postecoglou because I thought, as a complete antithesis to everything we'd seen under Mourinho and particularly Conte. And I mean, you can go on YouTube and look at a couple, particularly the Celtic Rangers games under Postecoglou, where Celtic absolutely blew Rangers away with fast flowing attacking football. The ball going from midfield into the wide players really quickly. The wide players hitting the top of the bylines, knocking the ball across, or the football was absolutely sublime. And I don't know why Tottenham haven't been able to do that. I said on a show not long ago that the only game I felt that we were really, really playing Ange ball as I picture it was that first 20 minutes against Chelsea when we ended up getting beat 4-1 and with Udogie and Romero sent off. That 20 minutes, we were threatening to annihilate them, absolutely annihilate them. Well, I think was Pochettino not the manager there at the time?
He was. That's his first time back at Tottenham.
It was yeah. I thought, I'm thinking we're going to win this 6-0 and we're getting Pochettino the sack.
And
then
Son
all went belly up.
Son was that much from offside from making it 2-0, wasn't he? Which would have been game over.
I mean, it's small margins, but it was the way, if you were at that game, the way we played, the way the ball was going into the wide areas, the way from the wide areas it was coming into that danger zone. Really, really quickly, which if you'll remember, David, it was, Abada, it was Jota, it was Maeda playing those passes, fast players, tricky players. And I'm wondering if the players aren't believe, because some of this talk, whether the players don't believe in the system, whether Ange is trying to adapt the system, because he hasn't got the players that will do that. And there was a comment by Dave. Can I put that up? About no, it wasn't that one. Lift his head. It was the one before that about bringing in Werner. And I've said this on streams before about Werner. Yeah, Christ, Werner, the number of chances he misses is driving us all. I mean,
We'll come back. Okay. Danny, you two want to add to the wingers?
All I will say, actually, on a totally different thing, it's actually today's the 5th anniversary of Pochettino's sacking.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
And on that, actually, during these 5.5 seasons at the club, he got rid of 36 players. You went through, your Bassongs and all that. They all went through, So just to show that it took time. And he was close to getting the sack before we got that win away at Villa.
That's right. Yeah.
Deflected free kick, was it?
Yeah.
It was a free kick, wasn't it?
Deflected free kick, yeah.
Deflected free kick. And the fan base I haven't seen the fan base like that. I've had others that lean a different way, and I try to be objective and impartial, right? But I've had others say, I heard them, and all this at the stadium. Well, I'm up in the East End. There was booze at half time. There was booze at the end of the game. And you were there, Brad, as well. We couldn't meet because I was stuck in a bus. I think there was an accident. And I didn't hear any of that. There may have been murmurings. I don't know. You know what I mean? But
the booing was mainly aimed at the players, I think.
It was. Yes, it was. It definitely was, right? I think Ian's trying to get back here.
Just quickly, and there's a lot made about, if you bring in another manager, you might get better out of this squad. I think there's an argument to make. He might get better out of them defensively, but will he get as much out of the forward line as Andrew's getting out of them? I'm not quite so sure. I think if another manager comes in here and is a bit more maybe pragmatic, is he going to get as much out of Johnson and that going forward? Because they're not getting them into as many positions as they currently are getting them into in the forward areas. And when they're getting into it multiple times, that's where our goals are coming from. But when you're not in there as frequent, that quality then, the lack of quality really will come to highlight. So, I think there also has to be a discussion around that at some point.
Yeah, back in what you just said, David. I think aren't we the biggest scorers in the Premier League and the creator of the most chances in the Premier League? I think so far this season. So
yeah, 23 goals we've scored. Well, we'll come on to the defence and my rant about that when we get down to that. Right, Okay, that's the wingers, right? David, 7 midfielders if we can count Kulusevski in these now. It looks quite strong, doesn't it?
I think to a certain degree it's strong. I think Kulusevski, he's turned into a wonderful player to watch, isn't he? The way he just glides around the pitch. I start giggling when I see bodies flying in behind him trying to tackle him. It's almost like watching Moussa Dembele to a degree. The bodies that guy just used to leave. Bentancur, I actually think is going to be such a big miss over this period. I think he's a lot better in that number 6 than someone like Yves Bissouma. I think Yves Bissouma is a lot more erratic in possession, gives away the ball far too often. And often he doesn't have that passing ability, which means he has to go dribbling with the ball and then lay it off, which brings problems in itself. With Bentancur, he does have a good distribution, so he doesn't need to dribble as much. And I think he gives us a lot more solidity and also gets the ball forward a lot quicker, I would argue, than someone like Bissouma. Bissouma, do you know what? I've been really disappointed in him. I think I don't even think this is a Postecoglou problem. We didn't see the best of him under Conte either. I think with Bissouma, I think he's one of them players, and I think we've had many of them at Tottenham in years gone by, that they're not focused on their football career. They sort of enjoy the lifestyle that comes with it. And look, it's no secret with Bissouma. You look at the video that came out, you look at, Brighton, it's well documented that he likes a night out and stuff like that. And I think it affects what he does on the football pitch. And I just think if we could get a manager that could get him to focus on his football and just say, look, Bissouma, you're 26, 27 now. You've got 3-4 years left at the top. What legacy do you want to leave behind? And sort of getting him that way, I think you'd see a much more better player. I just don't think he gets the best out of himself compared to the ability that guy actually has. Papa Matasar, this guy's only going from strength to strength. I think what a player. He's proven that he can do the defensive side of the game. He'll muck in. He's a team player. But he's also proven in recent weeks that he can get forward and do the other side of the game, becoming a lot more of a complete player. And what I love about it, he just sits there quietly. You see videos out of the dressing room, they're all jumping around. He's just sitting there in the corner. I absolutely love it. He doesn't have the ego. I absolutely love this kid.
Just on Sarr, just to interrupt you, you can carry on afterwards. Wonderful cross for Maddison to score when 1-4-0 away at Villa. And a lovely through ball this season for Sonny to run on and bamboozle the West Ham defence for a goal. And the kid, I really like this kid. I mean, the old joke has been going around, the world's covered with 71% water, Sarr covers the rest, right? I just think the guy, even under the Marines, sadly, who died, like when they were out in Korea doing all that training, double training, running, it was him and Gill, believe it or not, who were the fittest people that weren't like about to throw up and things like that. I mean, the guy's got a phenomenal engine on him. I think he's going to carry on, David. Anyway, go on.
No, look, I completely agree. When it comes to Maddison, I think there is a really good player in Maddison. But again, I question his commitment to football entirely. He's been on YouTube channels doing golf, darts and stuff like that, and I just think, again, is he as committed to his football? And I think he could get a lot more out of himself than what he is. And with Gray and Bergvall, I think great players for the future. I really like what I've seen from both of them. But when I look at the midfield options, do we have that real proper number 6 that this whole team could do it? Defensively could do it, that screens and shields them. But also that allows the likes of Madison and someone like Kulusevski maybe not to do as much defensive work, which means then they can focus more on going forward. And I just think when I look at it, that number 6 is a huge problem. A lot of people highlighted it all last season coming into the summer. And
David,
we failed.
On that, sorry to interrupt you again. Do we as fans, I mean, every fan's got a different perception of what a 6, an 8, a 10 is. Is a 10 a Dele Alli? Is it an Ericsson? Is it a Firmino? Is it a Madison?
Do you know what?
And like with a 6, are we expecting too much of a number 6?
I don't think so. Look, maybe I'm old school here. But for me, I think, the reason why you get a specific role is because you're not as good as people make you out to be. When I grew up, I seen footballers that could use both feet. I seen footballers that could go and tackle, but also get on the ball and spray a pass. For me, a number 6 is just someone that can not do the defensive side of the game, but also pick up the ball and be able to dictate and get moves going. I think you spend enough money, you will get that player in.
Would you give Gray a go? Everyone suggests he is. No one's seen him play. I mean, he bossed Chelsea in one midfield game, right? But that's only one game, so.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, right? Ideally now.
Is going to be missing.
I think ideally now you're probably, if you're Postecoglou, what have you got to lose, right? By bringing him in and putting him into that number 6 role and developing him. But again, we're talking about a season where the fans want trophies. The players spoke about winning trophies. And Postecoglou spoke about winning trophies. Is Archie Gray what you need in that number 6 consistently to be able to push you on to challenge for multiple cups? I'm not quite so sure. I still think, with the likes of Mikey Moore, there's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be inconsistencies. There's going to be times where he cost you a game from a mistake that he's made. It's all a part of the learning process. It's just not ideal.
Brad, your take on the midfielders we've got here?
Given the fact that Gray and Bergvall are young, and I think they're going to develop into very good players, or potentially. If you look at the other 5, Kulusevski, Bentancur, Bissouma, Sarr and Madison, on their day, that's a decent midfield. Bissouma and Madison on their day are very good players. It's just that we don't see it consistently. Kulusevski is probably one of my favourite players at Tottenham at the moment. Bentancur, sadly, we're going to miss him for a few games. Bit of style there. And Sarr, that's this guy. I liked him last season as well. I think I got to the stage where I was thinking, I think he's got a twin brother because he seems to be everywhere on that pitch.
I thought it was our best midfielder last season.
As for the number 6 goes, I think Gray potentially will fit in there at some stage. For the simple fact that if you look at him this season, he's played in the fullback roles. In pre-season friendlies, he's playing as a centre-back. So he's getting his defensive experience, and I think for an 18-year-old, he's got a good head on him as well. He's got a good brain, good football brain. So I think going forward, I think Gray will be that player. And I guess if you want to know a number 6, I guess you have to look at, Wanyama was, I think, the ideal number 6 that we had at one stage. And you could even go back further, and this is
Sandro, Scotty Parker.
But Eric Dyer was moved into that position and did an all right job for a while. So whether Postecoglou plays with that system, I don't know. He would say, "Oh, number 6, number 8, number 10." No, they're just midfielders, mate. So I don't know, but looking at that, those 7 midfielders potentially, that's a pretty decent bunch there. I do think we do miss in the middle, in midfield, and whether this will come up in discussion later about leaders. We do need that sort of leader, and I'm talking about players like, and I know they're very difficult to get hold of. You look what Steven Gerrard did for Liverpool, where he's single-handedly got them wins. You look at what Roy Keane did at Manchester United. Even Vieira at Arsenal. You see what they've done for their teams, and some of the older people that I didn't get to him a lot, but from what I heard, someone like Dave Mackay, these are players that I think this is the sort of player that we are missing at the moment. That sort of player that can get the team up by their bootstraps and win a game. And also, I do think we miss a creative player, a la Paul Gascoigne, that can win matches with just one thing, just do one thing and win a match.
The ball carrying number 8, yeah.
Yeah, you know, that
Yeah,
sort of
we
thing.
all want one.
We haven't got that. I was disappointed that we didn't sign Ezzy at the start of the season. I thought he could be that player. But yeah, so midfield wise, it's reasonable. But yeah, as David was saying, to win things that we want to do, I think you do need to strengthen that a little bit and just tweak it around.
Ian, first home game of last season, Basuma, Sarah, Madison, right? With Madison, who now, like, the microscope's on him, he's being scrutinised a bit now. People are questioning him and all that. We know he's a quality player. And I know you love your horse racing. So, but with Madison, is it a question of horses for courses when you play him?
Funnily enough,
Get the whip out.
Funnily, yeah, get the whip out. You throw me a little bit with that analogy. I think to some extent this is where, if it was my younger daughter's partner who could play a little bit, made a comment about Ange. He goes to Crystal Palace and he plays Madison, Sarr, and Bentancur, I think. And the midfield gets basically out-muscled and outdone. Up against Ipswich, where it needs somebody with the ability to unlock a defence, and he plays Basuma. Was it Basuma, Sarr, and Bentancur? I think was the three he played. And he doesn't have that. So it is a matter of horses for courses. But I've been really disappointed with Madison. I think that we need
3 goals.
Sorry?
3 goals this season.
It's November.
Yeah, I know. It's only 11 games.
If it was August, I'd be saying, yeah, I'm talking bollocks. But it's the end of November.
Okay.
3 goals, not enough. And not enough assists. But not enough contribution. Not enough of that. When I was talking earlier, before I don't know what happened there. I suddenly found I wasn't talking and I wasn't on screen anymore. With the ball, with those quick balls, I don't see him playing those quick balls in behind defenders anywhere near often enough that would, because then we become one-paced and we become a bit pedestrian. And one of my issues with that midfield is I think it's a touch. It's a touch one-dimensional for my liking. If you look back, you talk about Paul Gascoigne. Someone just mentioned Edsy in the chat, and I have to tell you, he's the player I would have loved, and I know you would, Adrian. Somebody that could open up a defence, could prize open a defence, particularly a defence like Ipswich's that is a low block and what have you. The other player I liked was Matt O'Reilly, who's now fit playing for Manchester City, because he plays so well and moves between the lines. And if people talk about cloning a player, which player would you clone? And obviously, we'd have Bale, or we'd have this one, or we'd have Kane, or we'd have that one. The player I think that would have made a huge difference to this side is Moussa Dembele, because he would play the 6.
And Modric.
Well, yeah, okay. Modric would improve any side. I'm looking at something that we genuinely, I suppose Modric, but we don't have. I'd sign Modric at the age of 40 now to come back and play. But Moussa Dembele, that ability to win the ball, to hold off opponents, to drive the ball in between the lines. So I think in terms of those players, they're very good, but we haven't got any one of those that's got that je ne sais quoi, if you like, that would just open up an opposition. And I think Edsy would have been a better player. Eugene in the chat just says Madison is a luxury player. I remember Danny Blanchflower was asked about Hoddle being a luxury player, to which his retort was, don't be stupid. It's the bad players that are luxury players, not the good. Someone's at my front door, so I need to
let David
go
cut
off for a
in.
minute.
Okay. Go on,
Madison isn't good enough to be a luxury player. We speak of, we had Luka Modric at this club. That guy worked his cock off working, running backwards and for the team. There's no excuse for it. For me, a luxury player it's not a luxury player. It's a guy with an ego that thinks he's too good to do certain parts parts of the game and that other people should do his work for him. You know, them luxury players, the likes of your Gareth Bales, maybe your Glenn Hoddles, you know, at United you had your Eric Cantonas and stuff like that, but they were that good on changing games and winning the games for Tottenham Hotspur, you know, or their respective clubs, that other players around them said, you know what, fair enough, we'll do his work, because he when the going gets tough, he will pull it out the bag. Not one of them midfielders have it. Brad spoke about it. Met spoke about it. Not one of them midfielders have it. You know, and I also question the hunger and desire in that midfield to win. For me, I don't think football's, you know, despite all this modern day technology and shit around the game, I still don't think it's changed in terms of your midfield wins your games. It's the most important place on the football pitch is your centre midfield. It protects your back line, helps you keep clean sheets, but also gets your forward players into games, into good positions. It's the most important position on the pitch. And I just question, do we have that guy in there that really wants to win? Brad spoke about your Roy Keanes, your Gerrards, your Lampards, your Vieiras, you know, of years gone by. And we even had it at Gareth Bale, with Gareth Bale at Tottenham for quite so long. If you want to talk the modern day era, give the guy the ball, he'll go and win you the game of football. You know, he just wants to win. I don't think when I look at that midfield that we have that. I think you've got players that are just happy-go-lucky. If they're playing well, they're playing well. If they're not playing well, they're not playing well. There's no one in there that would go around and say, you know what, I'm going to grab this game by the scruff of the neck. He's not doing his job. He's not doing his job. I'll just go and do it all today. I don't think we have that. I think we're really missing that guy in the midfield.
Do you think
even the six midfielders, it gives you like 20... That gives you 20 midfield, 3 variations. My question with Maddison is the fact that, like, now he's playing a little bit deeper. He's not getting kicked so much because Decky's being the battering ram, pushing a bit forward, taking the pressure off him. He should be doing better.
He gets the ball, losing
He's got more space now, David. He's got more space and he's not using it well. And there seems to be all this risk-free football, this robotic football. Maybe if players are worried about their stats, you know, when they get them and hand them to them or something like, don't want to be the one that gives the ball away. I mean, that's what I liked about Poch, take a risk in the final third. You know, I mean, like, we don't take enough risks in the final third with our midfielders. I mean, like, when we're going forward to me, I mean, like, it's either too slow. And what we tend to do is rather than, I've always said, I like players with vision that move the ball quickly, that make things happen. Our individual players are not making things happen. We're hoping the opposition make a mistake. That is not good enough. That is not good enough. You know.
And you're absolutely spot on. This is where I get annoyed with James Maddison is, you know, you look at Christian Eriksen, you look at Modric, anything that went forward went through them, but they took risks. They picked up the ball. They dropped it over the fullback's head. You know, they played it in behind for runners, you know, and stuff like that. With James Maddison, I think more or less he's just happy to move the ball on 10 yards and that's it, you know. Like, I've seen him do it at Leicester. The guy can pick up the ball. He can spray them passes. He can be that guy. I've seen him do it at Tottenham Hotspur. He just won't do it, Brad.
Yeah, he scored goals for fun at Leicester, didn't he, as a midfielder? Namely against us.
All right. I mean, I'm no doubt we will have loads of discussions in the future about these. Now I want to get onto the part that raises my hackles, right? Now, with this, I want to add a caveat, like, just to this at the moment, right, which I'm going to put up. We're going to talk about defenders, but I just want to add this bit. And this was earlier in the season. And just previous state to bring the second back is not a priority. He doesn't want to block the path of Ashley Phillips and Croatian and Luka Vuskovic, who's having a stormer in Belgium, who can also play as a number 6. I don't know. See, with Angie's comments, I take them at the time they take them, and whether his thoughts might have changed since then, you know. David, hit me with these defenders, right? Because I'll tell you what, I am, you know, with this defence, I don't care what system you play. You give away schoolboy error goals like we've had 8 people in the box, 7, 9, and we can't defend to save their life. What's going on here?
Just quickly on the Ange Postecoglou comments.
Go on.
I don't buy it. I think it's a guy playing 5D chess. I think, you know, similar to Pochettino, he'll come out, he'll take ownership of the situation. He's never going to come out and say, look, we tried to get this player, that player, and we couldn't get him right. And there's no point in complaining about it once the window closes either. At some point, he's just going to have to accept his fate and lie for the football club. I think that's what he's done. He's fronted for a bad transfer window. We were clear we needed another player that could play on the left-hand side, / left centre-back, left back. We didn't do it. You know, it's clear that we needed more leaders throughout the squad. We didn't do it. It's clear we needed more experienced players in here. We didn't do it. he's the only one that's come out and took ownership, and tried to deflect away from the situation. Everyone else behind him that didn't do their jobs are sitting there quiet and allowing it happy to be. So I don't, although he's coming out and saying that, I think we have to realize he's playing 5D chess. He cannot do what Antonio Conte done, where he bemoans the transfer window and stuff like that, because he's going to lose his job. When it comes into the back line, look, I do think we've got probably the best back line that's been available to us since the Pochettino era of Toby and Danny Rose and Kyle Walker. I do think someone like Romero should be performing a lot better than what he is. Someone like Adoji should be performing at this moment in time a lot better than what he is.
Udogie wasn't fit, didn't have a proper pre-season.
I agree.
Form towards the last season wasn't great, and his forms I thought he's got his mojo back away at Man United when 1-3-0. Look, I think he could go on. You can clip this. I think he could go on and be one of the best, if not the best left back in the world.
Yeah,
but he is like, he's just not finding his form at the moment. He's not consistent. That's the consistency thing.
Do you know what it is? I think our biggest problem across that back line is you've got no talking, and I think that's one of the biggest skills that you need in modern day football, or that you need in football in general. Sometimes just a quick talk, you can get situations sorted out. A lot of the goals I see us conceding, for instance, the back post defending, you're seeing Porro run in and take the runner, which he's right to do. But he's not screaming at anybody to go and cover the guy that he's just left. Some of the communication across the back line is poor. And I know some people may call it old school, but you hear about the Man United back line under Sir Alex Ferguson, the dominance they had. The Arsenal one with Tony Adams and all, it's well documented. You all had a leader who shouted, called the directions, put you in position, stuff like that. We don't have that, and it's a relatively new back line, and it's going to take a while for that to emerge. But I do agree, we've got a better back line than maybe what the stats are showing or the goals conceded are showing. But like I said, when we're playing this brand of football, they are going to be exposed. But you bring in another manager who tailors more towards them, you're going to have an effect up the opposite end. So, I think fans sort of have to pick and choose what they want. But for me, I just think if one of them could just realize, instead of blaming the tactics, if one of them just said, you know what, am I doing everything I can? Well, I could speak to Van de Ven more. I could speak to Porro more. I could speak to Adoji. I think you'd see a lot of our issues actually cleaned up, personally.
Brad, the issue on the right-hand side concerns me. Although I thought Brennan Johnson had his best non-scoring game against Man City in the Cup, right? The Porro, Brennan Johnson, if I'm an opposing manager, I'm going down that side, right? It's definitely going down that side. I've suggested before on one of our streams or what, that, to be honest with you, because of the goals we conceded recently, Kulu gave us a bit more defensive solidity on the right. You could bring someone else into midfield. Kulu can still do his stuff. He still cuts in. At the present stage, I'd be tempted to put Kulu back on the right. If Johnson's going to play, I'll move him inside, because at least he was helping Porro out. And I just think, look, Porro, when he first come, I castigated him away at Newcastle, away at Leicester. He was awful defensively. He even admitted he had to improve. He got better. And when a player at Spurs starts looking good going forward, he's got superb technique, right, to score goals and volleys. He's got on all that. But now his defensive frailties have come back to haunt him. To me, sorry. I mean, I wouldn't even be averse to selling him, because I don't think he's not the solution there. He's not. He's weak there. Your doggy will be a tank on the other side. He'll get his tank in his back, right? And he's a hard animal to fucking come up against, you doggy, right? With Porro, I think he's a good footballer. I think I suggested on the Irish Hotspur, a lot of fans play him out on the wing, but he's not a winger. I mean, you could play someone behind Porro. I think he could do a job as an 8. Well, I really do, because he's got the skill and the physicality and all that. People make a laugh, but then season or so ago, I said I think because Romero's so good on the ball, his all-round game is that good, I think he could play as a number 6, and people laughed at me then, right? I still think Romero could do that because he gets forward, scored 5 goals last season. What's your take on our right-hand side or Porro, Brad?
Well, I think with Porro and Udogie, as someone said, they were bought for a back 3 So with a back three, your fullbacks don't have to be as defensive. In fact, I remember England in the Euro '96, I think, had Anderton and McManaman as their wing backs. So that sort of shows you that you can have attacking wing backs. Again, with the system that Postecoglou uses, do you have a situation where when the two fullbacks are going forward, the number 6 drops back, so you have got the back three? I wouldn't sell Porro. I think Porro's too good a player. Sell. Again, I think a lot of these players are suffering from not being consistent enough. Hard to say that with Spence, to be honest, because I don't think he's had enough game time. But I think with Porro and then do you have the situation where when one of your fullbacks is going forward, the other one stays back, so you have got that more defensive stability. I get what you're saying about Kulusevski going on that right hand side with a bit of muscle, but I think he adds a bit of muscle in the midfield, and I think him and Maddison in the midfield potentially could work good because Kulusevski is creative. I think it works better. He's too one-sided. He's very left-footed, so I think it works better with him in the middle, and he could add a bit of muscle there as well. So I certainly wouldn't sell Porro, and I think he has maybe not in the last couple of games, but I think defensively he has improved. But maybe that's the system that we play with, that you're going to concede goals. I think the problem is, going back to what David was saying about communication, is that maybe it is on that right-hand side where we've conceded a lot of goals from that side. Then who is your guy that should be communicating with Porro? Is that Romero? So maybe that's where the issue is. Maybe that's where the problem is. And then again, if you're getting these far post goals, then stop the supply, do it that way. So, yeah, but again, on paper, they're not bad players. I just don't think we're seeing the best of them at the moment. Obviously, VDV can't help getting injured all the time. Dragusin had a magical World Cup.
Had a very good game for Romania yesterday as well.
Yeah. Spence, we haven't seen enough, but when I've seen him, I've been quite impressed with Spence this season. And Ben Davies is basically just Ben Davies. He's there to fulfil, that role that when we're missing players, he comes in. Now, I get the argument that if you're going to start winning things, then you replace Ben Davies with someone else. I get that, but at the moment, we don't look like we're going to do that. So he's there to fill in the gaps when needed.
Ian. Romero said when Ange was first brought in, when Emerson Royal was still, I prefer to play with Emerson Royal to the right, and Ange sort of told him politely, this is Ange ball, mate, or whatever, Now, I've noticed at games, and I know you guys, I know you come down and make games, and David will make the odd game, he'll come over and all that, but I get to watch a lot of games. I go there, and I'm watching patterns of play, and I'm watching what we're doing when there's a throw-in and all that. And with Romero, sometimes people accuse him of moving the ball slowly, but you have to. But I'm half with him on this. You've got to have movement for him to move the ball in front of him. Let's be fair to the players. He's by far and by a country mile our best defender. I know people like VDV, he's sexy and all that, but he's got a lot of developing to do. VDV, as far as, especially for a guy that's tall, he should be better in the air. But what I've noticed is. Now, that stuck in my mind, that comment, when Romero asked, because I tend to notice at the field, and I know you've seen on telly, that with Romero, obviously, you want to pass the ball central because then the midfield opens up and the midfielder's got options left, right, and forward. And a running midfielder, a ball carrying, causes panic in the opposition. But I've noticed with Romero that, to me, I might be wrong. I haven't checked the stats, so I could be wrong on this because I'm old school eye test merchant, really. But he tends to pass the ball central in the midfield, either Basuma's picking up or Maddison's picking up or whatever. Or he passes it to the left. So it either goes to your doggy, or he might try and ping one down to Son. And a lot of time I'm in a stadium, why aren't you passing it out to Johnson because he's free on the right, And I do wonder if its mindset is he's a bit concerned about our right hand side. But am I reading anything to this, or am I being delusional?
I don't know. I think we've got a problem on that right side. I remember anyone who sees the Sunday night shows knows good pal of mine, Jem Silverstone, has been on a couple of times. And we had a chat a few weeks ago about, and I said to him, is Romero not as good as we think he is. And his retort to that was, Romero's not as good as he thinks he is. And I think there was something in that. I know people talk about the Romero that plays for Argentina, but I don't see a world-class, world-quality defender, top leader when I watch Romero. And he should be given the kind of support and leadership and backup to Porro, who's younger than him and is struggling playing in a four, but I don't see any of that from Romero.
No.
The one for you guys as well as for people in the chat, there's still a fair number of you in the chat. If Real Madrid were to come in and offer us, let's pick a figure, 150 million for Porro and Romero, I'd be biting their hand off. Now, I know Levy will put the money in his back pocket and won't spend it, which is a completely separate question. But for 150 million, I think we could get better than Romero and Porro. And it's not what they are on paper, it's what they're actually delivering, particularly if we're going to stick with Ange. Because I don't think Romero's heart's at Tottenham.
I think Porro's had a good season.
Sorry?
I think Porro's had a good season.
Porro?
Yeah.
Just about every goal we've conceded, in my view, has been an error by Porro. I think Porro with the ball is a great player.
Well, Daggy may make a couple of mistakes as well for goals. So
they all have. They all have. That's the whole thing.
I think that all right, I'm singling out Porro. I think has been. That all of the defenders have been at fault for various goals. There's no getting away from that. Individual errors have been costing us. But I think that Porro is a right wing back. I think that's his game. I'm not convinced he's a right back. I think the inverted role suits him well. I did think at one point he might be the natural player to play forward, right side. Some people agree with that, some people don't. I'm just not happy with him as a right back. And I think time and time again we concede on that, with the ball. You said at the beginning of this that if you were an opposition manager, you would be targeting the right-hand side of our defence. You'd be getting your wide players, your left-hand players to overload Porro, because Romero's not going to do enough, and Johnson doesn't focus enough on his and doesn't have the defensive discipline to help Porro. So there's a weakness there. There's definitely Dragusin's been a bit inconsistent. He's one of those, give him 10 bloody games and let's see how he does. Because against Galatasaray, I think he was really weak. But in other games, he's been really, really strong. And I was really looking forward to seeing him play against Karabakh. And
he needs to develop an understanding, which means playing several games with Romero, several games with VDV. You can't. At Newcastle away, the second goal when Udogie should have been tighter to Murphy, and Romero and Porro were playing him offside. Dragusin didn't know whether it's stick or twist, and he's played everyone onside. He gets sent off against Karabakh or whatever it is. But he's looked good in the air. He's looked good. He's got good technique. He's good on the ball. He's nippy. He's quick. I don't know how fast he is, but he looks good. But this is again, lack of oven-ready players. David.
Look, when it comes to Porro, just quickly, he himself admitted he's not right back. He admitted himself in an interview there, I think, was it last season, pre-season, that he had to go and learn the defensive side of the game, that it's not what he's been asked to do at other clubs. So, he'll tell you that himself. But when it comes to Dragusin, look, don't get me wrong, I'm not writing the guy off. He's got plenty of time at Tottenham Hotspur. He's only, 21, 22. But he's not good enough in possession to dispossess Romero or Van de Ven of their spot. Both of them are far superior in possession than Radu Dragusin. And with the way modern football is, you have to be good in possession. And that's where he lets himself down. And that's where I get annoyed with his agent, quite frank, coming out over the last while, asking for game time. It's like you'd actually do your client more justice by calling him in, sitting down and telling him the areas that he needs to improve on to be able to fit the manager and get into the system, rather than sitting there telling Tottenham that they should change to a back
David,
three.
if there's one thing I can't stand is someone like Flora Menia who talks more than we do, mate. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Someone on Twitter tonight, or X, sorry, someone on Twitter tonight said that he wanted to sell Dragasing because just for the reason it'll get rid of his bloody agent. So yeah, we'd have to hear from him every 5
Right,
minutes.
I'll stay with you, Daddy. We'll move on, right? Because the reason I'm staying with you because I'm sure a big fan of one of these. I mean, we're a bit weak in the goalkeeping department, me. Right? I left out Archer because he's with Stuart Lewis in the under-18s, right? But out of these, I am a big fan of Gunter. I see so much of him last year. David, have you seen much of Keeley, a fellow countryman of yours? Or?
Look, Keeley arrived from Ireland with a huge reputation. A lot of the coaches and that within the Irish grassroots football and, in and around the League of Ireland, all spoke about how good Josh Keeley can be. But I did watch a lot of them out on loan last year, and for the under-21s, I think some of the same problems sort of came about in terms of set pieces. If teams put them in on top of him, he really struggled to deal with them. He was a bit weak in that regard, similar to Vicario, actually. And there was a couple of balls that came over the top that he misjudged. But apart from that, I think, Josh Keeley, you've got a really, really good goalkeeper there for the future. But I do think Gunter has the potential to be a lot better than Keeley, to be quite frank. Some of the saves I've seen that guy pull off last year in big games, big moments for the under-21s. One of the underrated, understated heroes of that team. I know Lancashire, Hall, Donnelly, came out with a lot of praise. But this guy, in big moments, really stepped up for Tottenham Hotspur. Really big future on his hands. Alfie Whiteman and Austin, forget about. We're just using them as a pawn to get the homegrown tick box on the European squad. That's all they're here for. Fraser Forrester, I think we'll see the end of him come the season. We extended his contract by an extra year, which means we were always going to extend, kicking the can down the road. Bringing in a number 2 or someone to come in here and compete with Vicario. All in all, I actually really like Vicario. I think he's actually probably the best shot stopper in world football in terms of some of the saves he makes. But there are a few areas of his game where he doesn't help himself. For instance, set pieces at Tottenham were a huge problem. Everyone went on about needing a set piece coach. But when a team's putting the ball in top of the 6-yard box, you don't need a set piece coach. You just need to get Vicario to hit the gym. And I have belief in his frame and come out. The old saying, come out, take man the ball. You clatter a guy hard enough, he's not going to want to be in that 6-yard box going for another ball. And I think that's where Vicario could really help himself.
Come out like the Ipswich goalkeeper. Caught everything.
Yeah, and I was watching a goalkeeper last weekend as well. There was a player in his 6-yard box, the ball came in, he went and punched the ball and absolutely clattered the player. You're allowed to do that as a goalkeeper, and the player didn't go into his 6-yard box after that, and neither did one cross. So I think that's an area where Vicario could really help himself become a lot more commanding. But I'd also argue that's not going to come overnight. I think he needs to get into the gym and build his frame up a little bit. I think he's a bit too lightweight for that right now, and that's why he's being bullied around in there.
Brad, are you familiar with these goalkeepers?
Gunter, I saw for the under-21s when I watched the under-21s, and I was very impressed with Gunter. Very impressed. He made some actually brilliant saves at key moments in the games. I watched all of the playoffs when we won the final and that sort of thing. Keeley, I've never seen him play, so I can't comment on Keeley. Whiteman, I thought a few seasons ago when I think it might have been Nuno in charge, Whiteman actually looked quite a capable keeper.
And Jose gave him the game, didn't he, in Europe?
Yeah, and I was quite surprised when he went on loan, but since that, he hasn't really... They seem to have forgotten about him. It's quite weird. Austin, I thought looked okay during the pre-season friendlies, and they gave him a 5-year contract, and I think, okay, he's going to be our backup goalkeeper, and Forster's going to be on his way out, but I was wrong. Forster's still there. I don't know why Forster is there if we've given Austin a 5-year contract. So
Foster's going, and Austin will make up the academy trained, won't he?
I mean, obviously, we've got 4 goalkeepers in the European squad. Vicario. Now, is Pat Jennings involved with the club at all? You guys know?
Ambassador.
He does bits and pieces, doesn't he?
Tell you what, if anyone
Rob Birch is the goalkeeping coach.
Or if anyone is to coach Vicario, the art of goalkeeping, it should be Pat Jennings. because he was absolutely the best goalkeeper,
Ever.
not only at Tottenham, but in the world I have ever seen.
And I would include Yashin,
Golf, and he used to him in the area used to go out with those big hands and grab those balls. So if anyone's to teach Vicario about how you own your box as a goalkeeper, it'll be Pat Jennings. But Vicario, as we know, is a really good shot stopper, and it's just frustrating that every now and again he does seem to be found out. And apparently he had a poor game for Italy the other night. But there's definitely, he's still quite young, really, and there's potential there. But he probably just needs that bit of coaching. Maybe I don't know how good Rob Birch is as a goalkeeper.
He was at Spurs at some point, never made it.
Right, yeah. So I don't know, but. Certainly.
I mean, there are 5 other coaches with this first team. When people say bring one in, you've got Millie Jedinick, haven't you? You've got Nick Montgomery and Sergio Romando, who were out with Australia and they managed Tibbs and the Scottish under-21s.
Yeah. I thought Austin,
Wells, ex-player, and Ryan Mason as well.
I mean, my idea at the start of the season when they gave Austin the contract was that Forster will be on his way out, and Austin would play in the League Cup and the European games. All right, maybe not in the really important ones, but certainly in when you're playing your Carabags and these sort of teams, I thought Austin would be ideal for those sort of games and your Coventries. But that hasn't worked out that way. But we probably do need another goalkeeper coming, maybe if they don't believe in Austin. Really, I mean, that's what it comes down to. Gunter, I think, given time, will make that spot. He'll be one of our goalkeepers.
Yeah, and if we do bring another goalkeeper in a summer one, it won't be in January. We got to sort the left back situation out in January, surely. Or left centre back, Hincapi or someone like that. Will come.
Yeah. Really, the goalkeepers. Funny enough, I'm thinking, do you know what? I'd get Pickford in over any of them. And there was just some chat up. Well, after I was thinking it, obviously before I've said it about Pickford and some. Come on, mate. There's clearly some debate about Pickford, but I mean, Pickford would not get bullied in the box the way that Vicario does, and the way that Vicario gets bullied.
Son bullied him for a goal.
Sorry,
Son bullied him for a goal. Took the ball off his feet, didn't he?
Yeah. I mean, Forster. I mean, you look at any Celtic poll for any goalkeeper or Celtic goalkeeper over the last 20 years, and Forster is absolutely right up there, even better than the holy goalie Arthur Boric, who was a legend at Celtic. I saw a bit of Austin and Whiteman in the pre-seasons. I think they were the 2 that were coming on. Austin, I thought, he looks a good goalkeeper, but he's already 25, 26. Is that right?
He was England under-21 goalkeeper at one time.
Yeah, but why is his game not on? I mean, my worry about a guy like that, if you're third choice at the age of 25, are you going to make it at a club like Tottenham? I don't think you are. I genuinely don't think you are. So I think we do have a problem. There's a comment in the chat there. Keller from Liverpool would be a great Vicario replacement. Is there a cat and hell's chance they're going to sell him? I mean, is there a cat and hell's chance they'll sell him to us? I don't think so.
I think with Kelleher, I think the situation at Liverpool is if they bring in Mamardashvili, the Valencia goalkeeper, then Kelleher will look to leave because he wants to become a number 1 somewhere. But he will not sign on at Tottenham if it's not made clear to him that he's coming in to replace Vicario.
I also believe there's a very highly rated goalkeeper at Lille.
At Lille?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. We did all right getting the race. Okay,
what's his name?
You know what? It's just gone from me now. Like I'd have it in here.
I'll Google it. I've been remiss because I saw a goalkeeper a couple of years back at Lille, and I thought he's going to be a player, and then I never heard any more about him.
While you're doing that, David, our man Ainge, right? All competitions, 58 matches, 31 wins, 8 draws, 20 losses. He has a 54.5% win ratio. Before we lost the last couple of games, it was 56. Mourinho had 58 games, but only a 46.55, right? And he had Harry Kane. Same with Conte, who was a bit better, 55 games, 58% win ratio. Poch, I mean, look at the amount of games. I mean, that's a fantastic win ratio for the amount of games he's played. AVB, 54.
Oh,
It's 58% win ratio with our inverted wingers, which nothing's much changed with inverted wingers in the Premier League. And surely we deserve to give Ange. I mean, I'm fully in Ange. I'll state this now on record. I'm fully Ange in all season. I am not prepared to go down this. No, it's not down to me. It's not my decision. But I do not want to go down that rinse and repeat scenario. We've all gone through the squad today. We know there's holes in the squad that need filling. He has been back, like some have critically said, and I've criticised him. We've all criticised him when we think he's got things wrong in the game with substitutions, perhaps lineups and stuff like that. But I don't think that's a bad record for a man in his second season.
Do you know what? Personally, I would question the backing. You know, the 400 million is the figure put out there. Okay, but we know we had to pay for Porro and Kulusevski under Andrew's tenure. They were deals that were struck before he even arrived at this football club. Then you take out the likes of the Valise transfer, wasn't coming in here to make an impact. Ashley Phillips, Bergvall, Gray, Udeber, Hyuk. You take that out, I think you'll find there's only about 250 million that has actually gone on first team investment. Look, I think Ange done a good job last year, despite what people say about him. You know, he finished 5th, he brought European football back to Tottenham, which was what we wanted come the end of the season. Heading into the summer, I think this is where we really let the guy down. And I think Postecoglou's taken a lot of the blame from it. We did not do the business that we needed to do to improve this squad. The only one we brought in to improve the situation was Dominic Solanke. He's the only one we brought in. Apart from that, we left ourselves short at left back, left-sided centre-back. You would argue left yourself short in midfield because you really needed a sort of leader in there. You're relying on youngsters out wide. We all know, anyone that's been around a long time watching football knows you're going to have the inconsistencies. So I do not put everything that we're seeing down to Ange Postecoglou. And I do think we have to be cautious as fans. You know, we said what I'm hearing about Postecoglou in terms of people are questioning his tactics, you know, that he's clueless. Maybe some of the stuff he's doing is outdated, this, that, and the other. But I heard some of the same rhetoric about Jose, Conte, Nuno. You know, Jose Mourinho left Tottenham, went on to win a Europa Conference League that we got embarrassed and knocked out of. You know, Conte, he's doing well at Napoli now. Look at the job that Nuno's doing at Forest. He also went out to Saudi and win something. We are not employing bad managers at Tottenham Hotspur, but we are not giving them the full weight of what we should help them really create what they need to create. And that there is the problem, not the managers. But, you know, last summer, or the summer before, I would say, yes, we done everything we could to back to a large extent, bar a striker, to back Postecoglou. But this summer, we just didn't. And I think, you know, people then attach to the words that he said, but he said they're all his players. I mean, come on. We bring in a director of football. That tells me he doesn't have as much say in bringing in players as much as normal managers do when you operate with a director of football. Second of all, he's head coach, which means he has even less conversation and sway in the players that we bring into Tottenham Hotspur, because when he's a head coach, his job is just purely he's there to work with the squad. Outside of that, he doesn't have too much say around what goes on at the football club. And we talk about leaders, people wanted to take ownership of the situation. He's the only one out there in the press, like I mentioned earlier, taking the blame for absolutely everything, taking, you know, the hit for absolutely everything. He's the one saying it's my responsibility all the time. No one else is coming out and taking any flack or even trying to help take some of the light off him. He's the only one. And I would like to see us, you know, continue under Postecoglou and see where this goes, because I think if we can rectify some of the problems, don't get me wrong, I think defensively he's going to have to tweak a couple of things. I think we are going to have to bring in some leaders and more established players. But if we can do that and we can win playing this style of football, we're going to be the envy of everybody, just like we were under Pochettino, you know. But I just don't think the fans have the patience. I think everyone has. The problem is everyone goes on about the rebuild, but everyone has different times of how long they think that rebuild should take. But when I go back on history of Tottenham since Pochettino, Jose, Conte, Postecoglou, all to a degree had 14 to 16 months, 17 months in the job. It's not long enough at Tottenham Hotspur to bring about the rebuild that we want to bring about. They do need longer time to fix. But saying that, I do understand some of the concerns that people highlight around the project. I think it's always good to listen to them personally because, sometimes you can get caught up in your own thoughts. It is good to hear fresh perspectives and stuff like that. And it is good to recognize the issues that need to be fixed. But it's a results-based business. And at the end of the day, we've got some tough fixtures coming up. They're going to dictate his future. And when you also hear the rumblings of players not, him falling out with players, I've been around the block. It happened before Jose sacking, Conte sacking, and Nuno sacking, of discontent in the dressing room, not buying into everything they're doing. And it sort of signals the end. But for me, where I'm at now, you bring in a new manager, you're effectively writing off the season, right? He's going to come in, bring in a new style of play, find new leaders, etc., which all takes time. Right now, we've won 3 out of 4 of Europe. You're one good win away from breaking into top 4 in the Premier League, and you're in the quarterfinals of the FA Cup or of the Carabao Cup. I'm not willing to write all that off and bring in a new guy. For me, I'm willing to stick with it for a little while and see if it bears fruit. But like I said, I'm a bit worried about the way Spurs fans sort of perceive the manager or tend to make him look when he leaves this football club, which I don't is right. At Liverpool, when Jurgen Klopp was suffering similar situations with the goalkeeper and the centre-back and stuff like that, right? They were conceding goals and there was a bit of inconsistency up and down, high-scoring goals. All their fan base had the conversation about who do we go and sign to improve it? We don't have them conversations. We just say, sack the manager, bring in the next guy. But I would also be weary of, we've been down this road before where people have said, sack him, the next guy will do better. But they just haven't. We've got a 10 to 11 game manager bounce, and that's been about it. So that's my problem with, it's as easy as that. I don't think it quite isn't, to be quite frank. I think, and the next manager that walks in the door, he's going to suffer the same problem, the same inconsistencies, because leadership in the dressing room is a real thing. If you don't have that, you're going to see the ups and downs in games. You're going to lose games of football. And I think the next manager will suffer that. Yeah, you might improve defensively, but like I said earlier on, I think going forward, you're going to really see the lack of quality we have up front, because then players won't be in the positions as often as Postecoglou puts them in there. So for me, I'm sticking with Ange at least for the next 5 or so games, if not more. And let's see where it goes. I think it's too early to pull the plug.
Brad, rumours in social media. I think
which is always 100% correct.
Low tier meters. No, I want to get a contrast for those in you in the chat, because I like to be objective, like when these things, when the excrement is about to hit the fan or whatever, right? Now, we win the 2 games, Man City in the Cup, we win against Villa, right? You get Brennan Johnson and Archie Dray come out, and the recent comments after the games were like, loving it at the club, we're a family, everything's happy, we're all loving it, it's great, right? You get Lucas Bergval's dad coming out saying Lucas Berg was loving it at the club, he ain't getting the game time, but his dad comes over for a month, then his mum comes over a month, and his girlfriend visits him as well, comes over and all that. So we got all this happy stuff going on, and then we lose 1 game against Ipswich after 2 wins, and we get the Football Insider, which is a very low tier media outlet. Then you get the Boot Room TBR, or you get Spurs Web come out, which are mainly clickbait for advertising revenues anyway. And then you'll get another tier come out and say, oh, well, according to, the Football Insider, impressive name, or the Boot Room, or the Spurs Web, they're all saying there's been massive bust-ups. There's been no drop-off. There was no drop-off in the pressing against City and Villa or effort. There was no drop-off, as if the players had given up on the manager. Now I think we've got a team that visit the manager, of experienced players in Maddison, Son, Romero and Vicario. So I can understand they've gone to Ange and said, well, we've got a couple of suggestions, or you're going to listen to us. But I don't think Maddison, me and Davey spoke on his show, actually. He came at me with a different angle, which was fair enough, fair point. I don't think there's been no great bust-up. I think, logically, I think there's been words. If there's bust-ups, you'd see team changes. So we'll see that in the future, read between the lines. But to me, if we stop pressing, remember when we had a bit of a drop-off when Kane won't happen and Sonny and all that, and you noticed the press dropped off, didn't you? You could see it, right? Hang about what's going on. It's looked like they've lost the will to fight for this club. I haven't seen any of that, and I haven't seen. Although some said to me, I think Mark Cousins said to me, he said, "Oh, there was booing at the Ipswich game." Well, I was there, you was there. There was booing, right? Sorry, he said to me, "Oh, there was hand shouts." There wasn't. I didn't hear it.
I didn't hear anything. No,
I didn't hear anything at all. So I think the take on this, I get. Look, we know there's a section of the fan base that don't like Ange and his style of football. That's fair enough. You don't like the manager. There's been managers I haven't liked that have been at the club previously, right? And we know there's those that leave. Yeah, I couldn't give a monkeys about Levy. You don't give a monkeys about me. The lack of empathy for the club towards the fans is a disgrace, in my opinion. And I'd love a new owner, not an investor. But that's a topic for another day, right? But I just think, like, and I get the fans' lack of patience. We haven't won a trophy since 2000. I get that. So all these frustrations build up. But I think they build up in a way which is I don't think it's fair, personally. It's you, man.
Okay, well, let's make one thing perfectly clear. It's perfectly okay to criticise Ange Postecoglou for decisions he's made, substitutions, tactical, whatever it might be, or to be fair, any manager. That's fine. But when you see the stuff that's coming out like he's clueless, he's been in management for, 30-odd years? You know, how can he be clueless?
26, 27.
You know, this is people saying this, people who probably play Football Manager too much, you know. And it's so let's but it's not beyond criticism, and it's quite fair, but to say the guy's clueless and to say the guy's one-dimensional, this is another myth. I've seen him been tweaked in 3 or 4 games in a row, different ways of playing. So to say that he's one-dimensional and clueless is just total rubbish, in my opinion. Okay. The other thing I will say is that if we'd have beaten Ipswich, and I know it's always a good thing to come up with, we would be sitting 3rd in the table in the quarterfinals of the Carabao Cup, League Cup, at home against a team that we can beat. And we won 3 out of our 4 European games, and we should be progressing to the knockout stage without the extra game. That's not a bad start to the season, in my opinion. We're the top goal scorers. You know, that's not a bad start to the season. If we had beaten Ipswich, you would not be seeing people places like the Football Insider coming on saying, "Oh, there's bust ups in the dressing rooms," blah blah blah. The other thing I'll say is that if there was a bust up in the dressing room after the Ipswich game because of the result, and they're all having a go and arguing with each other and accusing each other of this, that, or whatever, I'd rather be seeing that than them all sort of coming in there. Oh well, dear me, we win some, you lose some. Anyway, see you later, guys. I'm off on the international break. Have a good time. See you in 2 weeks' time. Much rather than fighting and arguing amongst themselves over a really poor performance than the other thing. And as far as the booing, as I said earlier, they weren't booing Ange, they were booing the players, because you could see I get to see them as they walk around, as you do, Adrian, as they come around the pitch. They were going to, almost apologise to the fans or applaud them, and the fans booed, and you can see on their faces they look really shocked. They look, they didn't like losing that game. I've no doubt about that. So we've got to give this guy a chance. The last time we were successful, and I could proudly wear my top shirt to the office and that sort of thing, was under Pochettino. What's the big difference? Pochettino had 5 seasons to get us there. Okay, you look at Klopp. Good point. Klopp got Liverpool there eventually. Took him time, and even Arteta was given time at Arsenal. And okay, they've dropped off a bit now, but they had 2 title challenges, which is similar to what we had 2 title challenges as well under Pochettino. So there is a certain pattern there that I think it bears looking into. The difference with Liverpool was they needed a goalkeeper and they needed a defender, and they went out and spent £150 million in January, if I remember right, in the January winter window, and got those 2 players that made the difference, and they started winning things. So this is where we've got to have a board that is ambitious enough, or just takes a risk every now and again to try and do that. Because I think that over the recent seasons under Pochettino, we might have been 1 or 2 players short of being a proper title challenger or even winning the title. But we had that 2-year period where we didn't spend any money on players. So we've got to give Postecoglou this chance. Let's see where we finish up at the end of the season. He got us into Europe last season. I predicted mid-table, so that was to me best. And we were only, I think, if Arsenal hadn't have lost at home to Aston Villa, all right, they would have won the title, but we would have got into the top 4 in the Champions League if that had happened. So, we weren't that far away. So, yeah, we've got to give this guy. And the other thing, no one actually comes up with, we should have this manager, get rid of him. No one actually says, who we should get in his place. Because you know what's going to happen? If they say Postecoglou, it's going to be Ryan Mason and the rest of the boys for the rest of the season. We're not going to go and get another manager. The only reason we got Mourinho in for Pochettino, because I think that deal had already been done, because before they sacked Pochettino, because it's really strange that he signed that contract literally overnight, and the big 50-page contract or whatever it was. So what's going to happen? We all know what's going to happen. So they sack Postecoglou and they bring in, I don't know, say Graham Potter. A lot of fans have said, Graham Potter will be good for this club, good attacking manager, did really well at Brighton. We bring in Graham Potter, we have the 10-game manager bounce, we do really, really well. Suddenly it all goes wrong and we're back to square one. We've only going, Potter out, we need to replace him.
Here's my problem with names like Graham Potter. Like, people say Postecoglou's out, he's dead. And they'll go, but Graham Potter has Premier League experience. Okay, but he's never finished as high as Postecoglou has in the league. Postecoglou's had one season.
And he went to Chelsea and totally failed at Chelsea. So,
Ian, we'll carry on. We'll do a little round robin on this, and then we'll probably close. I've got a lot more I could bring up and talk about, guys, but I'll probably save it. Unless you want to carry on, we can carry on.
The only thing I will say is that people laugh at us for having so many managers. They laugh at Chelsea for having so many managers. The difference with Chelsea is they've actually spent lots and lots and lots and lots of money, so it didn't really matter who their manager was. They still started winning things. That's the difference.
Because you watch Celtic a lot, and David obviously watched Celtic. I don't know how much he watches of them, but so you'd have seen him. I mean, people criticise him for being too stubborn. See, to me, with a manager, you come and you got a philosophy, you stick to it. I mean, you might have the players, but you come in, you've brought in, and you've said to the board when you're interviewed, this is my philosophy, this is the way I play. They might not understand it if they're not proper football people like our board on, but I mean, like, you stick to it, and you either die on the hill believing in what you believe in, because if you change things, and he has tweaked a lot of things this season, I could talk for an half hour on what he's changed, right? But so he should stick to his principles, shouldn't he?
He does, absolutely, and he does make mistakes. But every manager makes mistakes. Now we're all of an age where everything you do now as a manager, as a player, or whatever, is under the microscope on social media. It's ridiculous the way everybody thinks that they know best and they know better and they should be doing the job. And this manager's this, that manager's that. I mean, it's absolutely appalling, to be honest with you. We have gone through manager after manager after manager. As Dave said earlier, we've had some real quality managers. Even if you think Nuno was a complete tip, look what Nuno. All right, he got well gubbed in his last game at home to Newcastle. But he's doing an amazing job. Mourinho's doing well. Conte in particular is doing exceptionally well at Napoli. And at some point we have got to stick with a manager. We can't do this. We keep saying wash, rinse, repeat, wash, rinse, repeat. There comes a point as well. What decent manager is going to want the job, and particularly to give up a job, in the knowledge that they might get. They join now. Let's say they join in January. If they're lucky, they might get the end of next season. Realistically, if it doesn't go well, they might get punted at the end of this season. Or if we're 10 games into next season, they're off again. Can't run a business like that. Can't be successful in anything, and you certainly can't be successful in a football club. And you look at some of the best run clubs and the most successful clubs, almost entirely, unless they're the Chelseas of this world where you're spending, and we now know, Putin's ill-gotten money. That you just spend money after money after money, pound after pound after pound, on buying the very best players. Not most clubs are not sustainable on that basis, and I'm actually not unhappy that ours isn't. I mean, Audio Artisan says we'll end up with Southgate. I've said this before.
Yeah.
The closest. You know where I'm going here, Brad. The closest I want Southgate to White Hart Lane is the bloody underground station.
Southgate is Levy's dream. It is his dream.
Ian, just go through the chat. You've been following it and see how we are.
I
don't want to wear out David and Brad here. Like, they've been fantastic. I mean, they've smashed it tonight, right? So you'll probably get an invite on his show, Ian. You know what I mean? So
yeah. Well, that's all right. Dave will have an invite on to mine. Brad's been
well, Ian
before.
does the
I've done
Sunday
Brad
shows.
again
I don't.
as well.
It's like all these things with the podcast is we all clash. We can't help it. There's so many of ours, but they all offer something different. All these podcasts got a different tone, so there's room for them. You get the very light-hearted ones. You get the maniacal ones like as well, but you get the humorous ones, things like that. So there's room for all of us out there in the community. So have we got any more comments you want to bring up? I want to thank everyone
in
in
chat. No, I mean there's just there's nothing in particular. I just didn't want to detract from what the boys were saying.
Right.
Boys made some really good points.
Yeah,
really good points.
No, they've been very good. I mean, and I try to make the questions interesting, obviously. You know what I mean? So, like, don't want to bore our audience, do we? So, I want to thank our guests, Brian, David from the. Let's put the thing up again. Anyway, let's get
I was going to say, can you bring up the?
Right, you'll find Brad here, Blue Sofa Songs. I have subscribed, Brad. I was late, actually. I did it today, actually. I thought I already had.
Well, I'll double check because I know exactly how many subscribers I've got. So.
I did subscribe. I mean, I thought I already had because I'm subscribed to about 40 channels, and I will go and give them a thumbs up when I see them alive. And sometimes I'll have them on voice, but I'll have them on mute because I'm busy. At least they're getting the watch hours, you know what I mean? So I would do that. I'm all for helping other Spurs groups out if I can. Yeah. So this is Blue Sofa Songs, where Brad writes and sings his own songs, you know what I mean?
Yep,
so,
they're all my own songs, and I'm currently working on my third Christmas song, which I'm hoping to upload on Friday the 6th, or it might be the 7th of December, to give it a lot of time before Christmas to try and I've got these plans to try and get a lot of people to view it. So I'm going to send it on Twitter to a lot of people I know on Twitter, and that sort of thing. So, but I'm working on that at the moment. The last song I did wasn't very pleased with, but there's some good songs on there. So if you do go to my channel, all I recommend is there's a section that says top 10. They're the 10 songs that I'm really proud of. I think they're really good songs. So you can see the decent stuff I write as opposed to some of the not so decent stuff. But there's something for everyone on there. And hopefully you'll all subscribe, like, share, and all the really wonderful, wonderful things. And when the Christmas song's in, hopefully you'll give it a support as well. But thank you for that.
And you'll find... Right, sorry. Go on to finish. Oh, Christmas.
I was just going to say thank you for giving the chance. Thank you.
You're a good friend of the show now. You'll be invited back, as will Dave. It's just he's a busy man, right? And you'll find David at the Irish Hotspurs, usually with Jack Kaneki. Jack, unfortunately, couldn't come on tonight. I wanted to get him on, but he says he'll be available at some time in the future. It's just fitting us in because we're all busy doing what we do for Spurs, basically, and keeping the community going and interested in what we do. Like I say, thank you to everyone in the chat, my guests, to Ian, fellow co-founder of Spurs Diehards, and I will play you out.
Can I just say something before you play people out?
Whatever you want. You can speak for an hour if you want
to. First of all, do get over and support Brad. I think, everyone around the Spurs community, I don't think it matters what channel you go to. They all have only nice things to say about this guy, and to see a Spurs guy, putting his neck out there on YouTube and doing something different than Spurs content, please get over there and show him a lot of love. We all love him around here.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you for the support you give me on your channel as well. That's been absolutely brilliant.
Look, we absolutely love you, Brad. And then lastly, guys, give it up for Adrian and Mr. Met there as well.
And Ellie and Mark Cousins.
Ellie and Mark Cousins, really appreciate it. Like, you know, I'd absolutely love to come on again.
Get
And,
well soon, Ellie.
I do listen to where I can, but you know, it's great to see Spurs fans of all ages, generations, genders, and stuff like that out there doing their thing and showing the love for the club. So, guys, make sure you get behind these guys, smash the subscribe button, smash the like, and show them your support. Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you for them kind words, Dave. And with that, I'll play you out and see you guys in the back room.
Spurs